joining us here today. My name is Christina Gossier. I am the Public Relations Coordinator for PERA's Albuquerque office, and I would like to apologize for not having my camera on. I left my plug-and-play camera at home, and I'm working from the office today. The good news is Christina Perea, who is our other moderator here today and our Bureau Chief for the PERA Outreach Bureau. We are the moderators for today's event because the July 75th anniversary seminar series is going to focus on one tip to financial freedom. And our presenters today are Karen Lujan, who is the PERA SmartSave Deferred Compensation Plan Manager, and we are joined today by Peter Ratman, who is the PERA SmartSave Advisor for the northern portion of New Mexico. He is one of 3 representatives who helps to serve our PERA participants who also participate in the PERA SmartSave plan. They are going to be tag teaming this presentation, and then Christina Perea and I will help to field your questions through the chat. As a bit of housekeeping, a reminder that everyone is muted during this presentation. If you have a question you would like to ask verbally, please raise your hand and we will give you the ability to ask your question verbally, or you can send those questions through the chat feature. But as a reminder, since everyone can generally see those questions, we ask you not to send any personal details. Just a bit of background for our 2 presenters today. Karen Lujan is born and raised in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She graduated from St. Mike's High School and earned a bachelor's degree in public relations from New Mexico State University in 1999. Fresh out of college, she ran a school-to-work program for high school students in the Las Cruces area and placed many students in part-time jobs. She moved back to Santa Fe and worked as an admissions counselor and college recruiter for the College of Santa Fe, where she was able to travel the country and talk about her hometown. In her personal opinion, that was a super easy job. In 2004, she started her state government career as a public information officer for District 5 of the New Mexico Department of Transportation. She moved on to the New Mexico Educational Retirement Board as the outreach coordinator and is presently employed, obviously, by PERA as the Deferred Compensation Program Manager, Plan Manager. Karen's career has always focused on people and their well-being. She loves New Mexico and enjoys being a part of the contribution to the betterment of people's lives. And so Karen and I have worked together because she was part of the outreach team at our sister retirement plan, the Educational Retirement Board. So that's where we all got to know each other. And then tag teaming on today's presentation, as we mentioned, is Peter Ratman. He is a registered representative and investment advisor for Voya Financial, who works closely with the PERA SmartSave Deferred Compensation team at PERA here in New Mexico. He lives in Santa Fe, and before coming to Voya, he worked various jobs, including being a financial planner, a documentary filmmaker, a retirement consultant, a soundtrack composer, and he taught at the University of Texas. Peter believes New Mexico is truly one of the most special places in the world and is excited to help serve people who are lucky enough to call it home. It is also important to note that Peter has 3 investment securities licenses. For those of you who have any knowledge of that world, he holds a Series 6, a Series 63, and a Series 65. So congratulations to him. We know all of the work and preparation that goes into those certifications, and we appreciate having somebody with that knowledge base here to serve PERA's members. So I'm officially going to turn over the floor to Karen and Peter. You all should be able to see Karen's screen because we can see it. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I saw there are 176 participants on this webinar. That is so wonderful. I think we're going to provide everyone with all of the magic tools to financial freedom. Well, at least we're going to try. do that. But before we kick this off, I was a panelist once recently on a conference about financial wellness. And the question that was asked of me is, what is your definition of financial wellness? And my answer went to, there's a statistic out there that says, I think it's like 85% of Americans don't have $400 for an emergency. And that is my definition of financial wellness, is that we do have $400 for an emergency. We do have that ability to walk up to the ATM and pull out $400 if we need that. And that is my definition of financial wellness, is just having that security for things that we don't expect to happen. So I'm going to pose that question to my colleagues here. Peter, what is your definition of financial wellness?
Yeah, when I think about financial wellness, I actually think about, it's funny, I think about preventative healthcare. And I think about, I think that kind of came more into, the conversation when we were growing up, right? And I find a lot of those ideas of trying to think about these things in advance really apply also to having financial wellness. It's not something that you can just wake up and have. You can't wish, wellness upon yourself. You actually have to put in some work, and you have to put in, you have to have foresight to know what's going to go into eventually having that financial wellness. So.
And I think that is such a great point. As we're preparing for today's webinar and going through our slides, PERA's message is always about retirement, the end goal, right? 25 years, 30 years. But, it does take an effort in order for our retirement in those 25 to 30 years where we do have that ideal retirement, where we don't have to get a second job after we retire. If we want to do that, great, but we don't want to have to do that. And it does take effort throughout the years leading up to those 25 years in order to get to that goalpost. So thank you. That is a great answer. And I think we'll go to the next slide.
And Karen, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We do have a poll to kind of give you and Peter a feel of the audience today. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to launch it. Just asking them some questions if they do have a SmartSave account. And if you don't have a SmartSave account, tell us why. We're just kind of curious as to why, as we will be touching on those points today. And then we have a trivia question for you on some money, just a fun trivia question. So we'll give you guys about a minute to go ahead and answer that. I know, I'm so excited. There's so many participants today.
Oh, and I like this poll. This is actually a really good tool.
Yeah, it'll just give us an idea of everyone in the room today. So it looks like it's still climbing, so we'll go ahead and allow a little bit more time.
I feel like we're on live TV. I guess in a way we are. But the poll is... Yeah.
Go ahead, Karen, that way.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the last question stumped me, so I think it's going to stump everybody else. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. It's a required question. Number 2. I must have done that on accident.
So will you go over the poll answers?
Yes, ma'am. I will go ahead and get that going. So I'm going to end the poll. So thank you, everybody, who answered. Okay, so let's see. It looks like 76% of everyone today has a SmartSave account. That's awesome.
No, they do not.
Oh, they do not? Actually, yes, they do not have a SmartSave account. So perfect. You are in the perfect seminar today. So hopefully we can convince you as to why you should. I guess the number one reason why they do not have a SmartSave account is because they didn't know about it till now. So that's, we're very thankful that you guys are here listening about it today. And then everyone answered 10 years, and it's actually 18 months. So that's a typical lifespan of a $1 bill. So, so great. Thank you so much for participating.
Well, my dollar bills, I don't even know if they last 18 months. So the good for everyone else if yours go further than that. I hope everyone's laughing. Okay, so this first slide, we thought it was important to just bring up some statistics, right? The title here is Financial Anxiety is Widespread. 70% of people globally feel anxious about their financial situation. 62% of people feel depressed about their financial situation, and 56% feel ashamed about their financial situation. Now, we didn't include this slide to start on a downer. We didn't want it to get everyone stressed out or depressed, but we included this slide just to offer some perspective, right? I think it is important for people to realize that if you do feel anxious, depressed, or ashamed, or stressed, or anything about your current financial situation, you're not alone. It's actually normal, probably, to have stress about your financial situation than to not. And believe it or not, even people with money have anxiety, stress, all those feelings about their financial situation. And so you're not alone. This is something normal that people feel, but the way to get out of those feelings, right, is like Peter said, is to make that effort to make a change, right? So that you don't have to have those worries about or those feelings or that extra level of stress about your financial situation. I mentioned earlier that PERA's message is always about retirement, the end goal. And so it is also important to start making that effort sooner rather than later to get to that end goal and to get to that ideal retirement. And that is where the PERA SmartSave Deferred Compensation Plan comes into play. I am a huge believer and a huge advocate for financial wellness. I think that financial wellness and financial independence is possible. I know that a lot of people will tell me, but Karen, you don't have kids. You don't get it. And that is true. I don't have kids, so I'm only supporting myself. And yes, it is a little bit easier for me to save money. However, I do save money for my own emergencies, right? And so you moms and dads out there, you actually make my point for me. Because you have little ones, now you have to save money for their emergencies, right? If you've got 1, 2, or 3 kids at home, well, those are 3 separate lives where things can happen. And so my response to that is, if you have kids, it's even more of a reason to make that effort to become financially well and to have that security by your side. And yes, it can be challenging. You do need to make an effort, but the Deferred Compensation Plan is one of the resources that is here for you that can help you get to that goal. So for those of you who don't know about this, as you all know, you are mandated to the defined benefit pension plan. And your mandatory pension retirement, that is guaranteed if you get there, right? If you make it past the vesting period, you make it to your 25 years, your PERA retirement is going to provide you with a monthly benefit for your life. The Deferred Compensation Plan is a voluntary supplemental retirement plan, and this plan is intended to complement your mandatory PERA pension. I like to say that your PERA pension is going to provide you with a stream of income, while your Deferred Compensation Plan is going to provide you with a pool of income. Okay, this is going to be a stash of money that you're going to have in the future to use for whatever it is you need. Okay, there are no rules on what you can use it for. It is yours, you saved it, and this is going to be yours to use. Additionally, this plan provides you with various tools and educational resources to help you reach your financial goals. You know, it is easy for us to, okay, I'm going to contribute and I'm going to put $25 per paycheck. And this happens every day. People put in their $25 and then here it is 25 years later. Throughout all those 25 years, they never increased their contribution. They never updated their investment options. You know, they never did any of that stuff. And so while yes, they do have a nice little balance in their deferred comp, but perhaps had they made a little bit more effort throughout the way, perhaps it would have been even more, right? If you just paid a little bit of attention. And we're going to talk about how you can do that today.
Karen?
Uh-huh.
A question came through in the chat. Rick would like to know if the supplemental dollars are taxable once withdrawn for any reason.
Yes, just like our PERA pension, if you are contributing pre-tax contributions, you will be, taxes will be withheld from whatever withdrawals that you take in the future. So yes, it works same way as our PERA pension. Okay, so this next slide corresponds with Christina's poll that she took. Right now, there are approximately 80,000 eligible employees who can participate in the deferred comp, but we only have about 33% of the population that's actually participating. And and this is based on experience, the reasons why more people aren't contributing to the plan. And the first reason that we get is I can't afford it, okay? Our response to that is pay yourself first, okay? When we're thinking about saving money, our brains naturally tell us, pay all your bills first and then save whatever's left over. But after we pay all of our bills, typically there's nothing left over. And so the savings bucket gets pushed further out and further out. In the deferred compensation plan, this contribution is coming out of your payroll automatically. It is payroll deduction, and that is being sent over to our plans administrator, and you're not even seeing it. So you don't even have to make that effort. The minimum contribution is only $10, okay? And if you're choosing the pre-tax option, that means that you are not being taxed on that $10. So the effect that it has on your take-home pay is actually less than $10. So a $10 contribution might only be maybe a $6 or $7 hit on your take-home pay. So if we can afford a $10 Starbucks once or twice a week, then my response to that is we can afford a $10 biweekly contribution to ourselves, right? Pay ourselves first. And then the benefits of the pre-tax contribution is that it lowers your current tax liability. So there are a lot of times after April when people have paid their taxes or filed their taxes, sometimes those who work with a tax advisor, they tell them, if you don't want to pay so much in taxes, then you need to stop taking home so much money. And this varies for everyone, right? And so one way that they remedy that is by adding more to their deferred compensation. The more you add to your deferred comp contribution, that's less money in your pocket, which means less money that is owed to Uncle Sam. So just something to think about. The second reason that we get often is stock market intimidation. And this absolutely is completely understandable. We watch the news every night. For those of us who watch the news every night, they always have a quick little blurb about how the stock market did today. And we kind of pay attention, but I think what's most relatable to us are those green and red triangles, right? So we'll see either the green triangle facing up, which meant stock market did well today, or the upside down triangle that's red facing down and stock market did bad today. And, you know, we really don't know what that means. And especially now, since the market has been so volatile with all of this inflation, the Russia-Ukraine conflict out there, still the effects of COVID and the supply chain, all of that is contributing to the market volatility. And so I do completely understand how we would be intimidated to even put our money there. And Peter's going to talk about that in a couple of slides. And then the last reason that we get is I simply haven't gotten around to it. A lot of times when we talk to people, oh, do you have deferred comp? I keep meaning to enroll in that, but I just keep forgetting. You know, we have the enrollment form on our desk or we have it in our email, but we get busy doing everything else, right? And so we put it to the side. Before we know it, 5 years have passed, and we finally get around to enrolling in the plan. So if you are one of those people, we want to tell you about the power of time and compounding. And what that means is the more time your money has to be in the stock market, the more time it has to grow. Okay, even in these volatile times, the sooner you start, the better. Okay, so don't put it off anymore, just get it done. And to make it convenient, we now have online enrollment. You don't need to worry about those paper forms. You go to the website, enroll online, you're all set. But for those of you who still want to do paper forms, we've got those. We can mail you a form, we can email you a form, we can show you where everything is. The important thing is to quit stalling and just get started. Okay.
Excellent. Miss Karen, lots of great questions are coming in through the chat. Since you are in between slides for just a second, do you mind if I shoot some your and Peter's way?
Yep.
All right. So there are a stream of questions, and some of them are themed the same. So folks are asking what happens if they separate employment either pre-retirement or at the time of retirement. They want to know what happens. Can they access the funds? Are there age restrictions? And so I think that takes care of a couple of those questions, and then I have some more for you.
Okay, easy answers. You have access to these funds as soon as you terminate employment. If you quit, retire, or get fired, you have access to the funds, okay? It's just you have to be terminated from employment. There is no age provision attached to this plan. This plan is a 457B plan, so you don't need to be a specific age. You might hear of age 59 and a half. That does not apply to 457B. That only applies to 403B and 401K. Does not apply to 457B, which is very beneficial in the state of New Mexico because we do have a lot of young retirees. So age doesn't make a difference.
Excellent.
Any other questions?
Another question that came through has to do with the payout of leave balances, be it sick leave, annual leave, anything that's payable. They want to know if those can be sent to their PERA SmartSave account or any deferred compensation account.
The answer is yes. If you have a leave balance that's due to you when you terminate or you retire, yes, you can move those funds into your deferred comp. The benefit of that is you are not taxed on that large lump sum. It's going to your deferred comp without taxes. There is a special form that you'll complete to get that done. And yes, you don't have to do that until the very end, until you're actually in the retirement process. If you terminate employment and you have this balance and you go work for another company that offers another pre-tax, they call it another qualifying plan. And what that is, if it's another pre-tax defined contribution plan, yes, you can move these funds into that plan as well. So you can move these funds into a 401k, into a 403b. About the annual leave contribution, there are maximum contribution limits. So you just cannot exceed the annual limit, and that is a lot. It's $20,500 per calendar year, and it's $27,000 if you're age 50. So if you have a huge leave balance and you're contributing the max, you wouldn't qualify if you're already maxing out. So those are specific questions that we would have to look at your account and get into, but you can do the math yourself also.
They can also always email us, and I can give them a form that has all the numbers broken down, and I'm always happy to go over those details with people. So
we'll have our contact information at the end for specifics.
Perfect. Thank you. Lots of great questions additionally. We have somebody who transferred from a municipality to the state, and they had a supplement at the municipality, and they're wondering what they have to do to pick up basically where they left off now that they're with a state entity.
Okay, if you are moving from a local government to state government, because it's a separate, completely separate payroll system, you need to re-enroll in the plan or enroll in the plan. You get started. If you want to move those funds that you accumulated at the other plan, you can do that. So it's all possible. All these, we'll have our email address at the end, and all these specific questions you guys can send through email, and we'll work with you one-on-one.
Thank you. We've got a few more questions rolling in. Someone wants to know what the average annual interest rate of return is, and I know that's a complicated question and you might not be able to get too deep, but we can post whatever you would like us to in the chat in terms of a link.
Okay, that is a very complicated question, and actually it is a great segue to the next part of our presentation. So this plan, okay, there is an investment menu in this plan, and they're all mutual funds, and you pick, there's all different mutual funds. So you're not necessarily, it's not like a bank where you go and you open up, for example, a CD and it's going to provide X amount rate of return. You actually choose different investment options, and they all behave differently, and they all provide a different rate of return. Okay, so that is a great segue if we can go on to the next part, which is called the stock market. This is the reason why we included this is because people have communicated to us the stock market intimidation. You know, I don't understand that stuff. I don't understand how it works. Now, the beauty of the deferred compensation plan, it's very simple, right? Yes, the stock market can be complex and intimidating, but this plan, if you understand basic concepts, you'll be able to navigate through your own deferred compensation plan. So I am going to hand it off to Peter for this next portion.
thanks, Karen. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to demystify the markets a little bit for everyone. We'll take a somewhat high-level approach. So I know it's really easy to get lost in the weeds with the finance. Just know I'm going to try to keep things as simple as possible, also as quick as possible, so we don't overload everyone with too much information. Okay, so we see a graphic here, right, with our farmer and his basket of eggs. And the proverb, I think we've probably all heard before, which is don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Now, what does that mean in financial terms? So we have many different ways to invest in money, and it is almost never a good idea to put everything into one product or sector, right? So what are some of those ways that you might see offered for investing? We have a list here with some of the more popular ways to invest. These also happen to be ways that you can invest with a deferred comp account. So first on the list, we have stocks, right? So real quick, let's go over actually what is a stock exactly. And in the most basic terms, you might hear a stock referred to as equity or as a security. What it is it simply shows ownership in part of a company. Stock entitles ownership to some of the corporation's assets and profits. That amount is equal to how much stock or shares you own. So the stocks, of course, are sold on a market where people are making bids and offers on them. So if you think a company is basically worthless, and it's using as an example here, Sears, you would be picking up shares for pennies, right? On the other hand, if you think the company is going to the moon, let's say like Tesla, for instance, the shares might become quite expensive and inflated. They might even become overvalued, right? So now thinking about that example of Sears and Tesla, you should be aware that there's a good deal of volatility involved with those type of particular assets of stocks, right? After all, with Sears again, it was once a very large company, but now it has been reduced to basically nothing, right? This can happen to any company. In fact, I believe it's actually a good thing to see some failure if we're looking at how a healthy capitalist economy should operate. And I would say you should always be somewhat wary. Don't fool yourself with these, okay? As much as we might like to see the numbers only go up and see that green triangle that Karen was mentioning, we can't have unchecked growth, okay? It's basically unsustainable. It can lead to all sorts of issues, of course, some of which we're experiencing now, like inflation, right? Let's see what's next on the list. Bonds, right? Bonds, as far as the market is concerned, are essentially they're units of debt that are tradable. You'll often hear about how these are fixed income. That's because they usually pay a fixed amount, and that would be the interest percentage on the bond. You may be familiar with hearing about bonds being issued to help raise money to pay for things like bridges and roads, right? And overall, the product is much less volatile than stocks, okay? Along with that, though, you're not going to see the sort of crazy returns that you would, like you would with potentially owning shares of someone like Amazon, say. I should also mention, too, that you can see higher returns sometimes with this type of debt, with bonds. And that usually comes down to the credit worthiness of the debt, but that's a little beyond our scope of the talk today. So I'm going to move to the next thing. What do we have? Real estate. Yes. Yeah, so with real estate, you can, of course, buy a property. You can take a mortgage out. You can hold in house as an investment. But you can also buy into something like a real estate trust, or it's a REIT, as you might hear it referred to as, where you can buy a unit, you buy a small slice of a bundle of pooled mortgages, and where you participate or get exposure in investing in housing without potentially having to buy or operate or finance your own real estate, okay? We have cash listed here too. You may have heard people say, cash is king, especially lately. And what people are referring to usually is that cash has a great deal of liquidity offered through it. So unlike something like buying a house as an investment, which would be considered more illiquid, since it takes so much more time and effort to sell and buy, with cash, it is there for you immediately, right? And it's good everywhere. This isn't like, pulling your card out to cover dinner and finding out they don't support Amex or something, right? Okay, so, and buying the house, you would want liquid to purchase with, and so therefore cash is king. Cash here in this list is also, I think, referring to like money market funds and stable value, which in turn are usually invested in short-term debt and securities. Those are also very liquid, and they usually only have modest returns, if any at all, okay? Finally, we have our target date funds, which is listed under the diversification. So I'm guessing some of you may already be familiar with these, as they're the product that is most retirement funds nowadays default to investing in. But very briefly, how these work is, first off, they have some sort of a date attached to whatever target date you're investing in, right? If you are younger, you'll most likely invest in something like a 2050 fund. If you're on the verge of retiring, though, you might be invested in a 2020 fund, even though that date has already passed, okay? What is happening inside the fund is that as you get closer to the target date, the fund manager is automatically shifting the holdings inside of it, right? From something that might be more heavily weighted towards stocks to more heavily weighted in bonds and cash, right? So the thinking being that cash and bonds are more stable, and they offer less returns as well. And they would be more prudent to hold closer to when you'll need to start tapping into them, right? Last thing you probably want right before heading into retirement is to be all invested in stocks, right? Because then in a time like now, with all the volatility, you'll be seeing your balance jump up and down daily, right? And since you're close to retirement, your balance will most likely be much larger, and you have to stomach seeing drops and gains of thousands of dollars a day. and that's pretty hard to stomach. Okay. Speaking of target date funds, this leads to the second part of the panel, which mentions asset allocation, as well as the bottom section, which shows some of the performance of the target date funds. As far as asset allocation is concerned, when you hear that, it's just really a fancy way of saying how many eggs of a certain type are we going to put in each basket, okay? So I should mention that this is really up to you. Again, like Karen was mentioning with the deferred comp account. In fact, the whole power of these accounts is that you are taking control of how you'd like to invest, right? If you say, okay, I really need to bump up my balance, I'm behind in saving, that's totally doable, right? You're going to have to take on more risk, but I'll discuss that here in just a second. For the performance table at the bottom, I'd just like to draw your attention to the years that are listed. So we have recent performance, and then we have kind of longer term performance you'll see going across. If you haven't heard it before, I always like to mention time in the market is always more valuable than time in the market. And Karen was kind of alluding to that earlier. You can see pretty clearly here that if you were to just look at how money was doing in the short term, it wouldn't look so appealing, right? But what we are really looking for with any investments is what is appropriate for your particular time horizon. Okay, so again, going back to the target date examples, when you look at the 2030, the performance short term is the worst, right? And that's because it's mostly heavily weighted towards the stock market, right? It makes sense. But when it is doing good, you're going to see larger returns in that account, right? The conservative fund, on the other hand, has lost a more modest amount, but also has less returns in the long run, right? So basically what we're seeing is risk and reward at work here, okay? Let me see. Oh, one other thing I should mention. I often hear people say, especially in times like this with all the market volatility, that they've lost so much money in the markets. Just so you know, when you see the swings that are happening and you see the green arrow and you see the red arrow, what you're really seeing in gains and losses is gains and losses in value, okay? So those prices you see attached to your mutual fund or to that special stock you're holding, they only indicate what it is worth at a certain point in time and at the point of sale or purchase, right? So going back to our target date fund, what's happening on the end? So what you're doing when you buy into it, you're purchasing units, right? You're buying units of the mutual fund. So you might have 100 units of it, and that each unit might be a mixture of stocks and bonds inside of it. That value is going to be going up and down constantly. Overall, it's going to be going up in the long term, but it's going to have periods where it's going down. So it didn't change how many units you own, right? You still have 100 units, okay? So when you buy those are yours and you hold on to those. It's only the value that's going up and down. I think that's a good segue to the next slide, Karen, or whoever's controlling. Thanks. Okay, so yeah, this is time horizon risk tolerance. This is the part of finance which I find really fascinating. I think one of the reasons is it's a little different for everyone. The risk you're willing to take on is really based on so many personal things that's going to be unique to your life. And I guarantee for as many different people we have on here today, each one has a different time horizon. Okay, no one is the same. And the time horizon you may be considering is also interesting because that may change many times as you go through your career, right? In fact, I'm not a big fan of using the term retirement, just because I think it sets up this false expectation that you just need to get across the finish line and everything is going to be gravy after that point. But I think I usually find it more useful for people when they just think about retirement as another step in planning for the future, right? We think about it more as a transition point. There's going to be more things to plan once you leave your job, right? The planning isn't going to stop suddenly when you're in retirement. When you retire, you don't cross into the unknown, and your whole life also doesn't come down just to this one singular thing. So just try to keep that in mind as you're maybe headed towards retirement. So yeah, with time, I think it's very fascinating. Actually, one of the things I find super useful in thinking about any of this financial stuff that we've been talking about is to break it down into how it operates in time. So going back to what we're discussing, if I were to invest in these, I would be really focused on the appropriate amount to hold of a particular product in regards to the time I have available to invest. Okay, so if I have a long time horizon, right? I'm just starting out in the force. I'm a young hotshot firefighter. I'm 20. I'm just getting going. It's fine to be in the stock market, right? You put it all in there because you have such a long time to grow, right? 10-year average, by the way, I saw a question pop up a little bit ago. What's like the 10-year average on the total stock market? Well, there's actually a fund for that. It's VTI that Vanguard holds. It's 16%. Okay. And when you hear people say you can't beat the market, that's the percentage they're usually referring to. Okay, it's very hard to somehow come up with make more than 16% on your money. But just know that. Okay? Again, going back to the target date funds, these already have all of this kind of shifting built into them, moving from the stocks to the bonds to the cash. The assumption is that, of course, when you're younger, you're going to have more appetite to risk. Your balance is going to be smaller. It's not going to be the end of the world if it swings, right? But what if you're about to retire? What if you have, like Henry was mentioning, a whole family to support, right? And you're about to quit your job or you want to do something else, okay? So at that point, again, you want to have access to liquidity. So probably not the best time to be fully invested in the stock market. Again, with the deferred comp account, you can shift that over to a money market fund, right? To a stable value fund. And you would know that your money's going to be there when you wake up tomorrow and you want to pay down your house or whatever. That amount is just going to be there. It's not going to be fluctuating up and down or anything like that. So yeah, in regards to these different sort of outlooks or time horizons, you'll hear people refer to them as aggressive, moderate, or conservative. Just remember, even if you've been classified as a conservative or an aggressive investor, just because you're young, again, it's really up to you. You ultimately call the shots. If you don't like seeing your account jump up and down, you want to get invested in government-backed security, that's up to you. That's the real beauty with the deferred comp account. Okay. I think that's
actually, yeah, that's actually a good segue to the next slide. Pay attention. That's the next topic. So you've enrolled in the plan. Now what do I do, right? And so we have these tips here, okay? The first is quarterly statements. So once you're in the plan, you're going to get a statement every 3 months on how your plan is doing. And if you're like anyone, any human being, especially now, we go to the mail. If we go to the mail, we get our pile of mail, we put it somewhere in our house, we never open it, right? Well, for those of us who still get mail, your quarterly statement is probably in the mail. And same with your PERA statement. Those get sent out every year. And though you don't have to pay closely attention to your retirement every single day, every single month, there's a reason why these statements go out every 3 months, because that's probably a good idea, a good reminder on when you should pay attention to something. Okay, so the quarters, as everyone likely knows, they're in March, June, September, and December. And Voya sends the statements out starting the 15th of these months. And so if you are on e-statements, you're going to get an email that says, your statement is ready, which means you log into your account and you can look at your statement. And what is important about looking at your statement is, first of all, it has your performance. So somebody asked earlier what the rate of return is. Well, it's going to be different for everyone depending on how you're invested. So in your statement, there's going to be a section that has your personal rate of return and how you did over the 3 months. It's going to tell you exactly how much you gained and exactly how much you lost. If you log into your account, your homepage is going to show you that right there, right then and there. So that is something to pay attention to. Okay, your investment performance. And if, again, talking about time horizon, risk tolerance, the beauty of this plan is you control this plan. If you look at your performance and you see that you've lost X amount of dollars, you have the ability to make changes to your investments and to modify that. And you can call your outreach rep. Peter in the north, Paul in central New Mexico, and Linda in southern New Mexico. And these reps can talk you through the different investment options that are available to you. And in the end, you make your choice on how you want to invest your money. Okay, so pay attention. Account maintenance. This is also a good idea to look at your account, look at your address, look at your contact information, look at your beneficiary designation. If you have life-changing events, maybe you got a pay increase, maybe you got married, maybe you got divorced, maybe you have old jobs where you have old retirement plans. These are your quarterly statement are reminders for you to pay attention to these things and to update as necessary, right? Maybe now is a good time to put my pay increase into my deferred comp. Maybe now is a good time to get my ex-wife or ex-husband off my beneficiary designation. You know, your quarterly statement is there to remind you of these things. The last tip we have on this slide is utilize your plan's tools. So on all the statements, and they can be daunting, you know, it has a lot of numbers, it has a lot of text, but they have small messages on the statements. And these small messages are usually filled with tips or information on the different tools that are available to you. So one little message might say, are you ready to increase your deferred contribution? Well, here's how you do it. Okay, so everything on those statements has a purpose. Okay, we're not just putting in messaging for the heck of it. We're really putting in customized messaging to give you guys the tools and resources to help you reach your goals. Okay. The next topic is plan resources. So for those of you who have a deferred comp plan, this is what your homepage looks like when you log into your deferred comp account. Okay, at the top you have, well, your homepage is going to have that big orange dollar bill. And for those of you who were on the webinar last month, where we were talking about the PERA retirement estimate, this orange dollar bill is actually a calculator. Okay, and we're going to show you a little bit of how that works on the next slide. So that isn't just a picture of Voya's Orange Money. This is actually a tool. Okay, and then at the top of your screen, you have these different options. One says My Retirement Account and one says Financial Wellness. And under that Financial Wellness menu is even more tools and resources for you. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for a second. We're going to go to the login here. Okay. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. And so for those of you who have deferred comp account, this is where you log in. Okay. It's loading. Here's our home page. Okay. So quickly here, here's my orange dollar bill, right? And if you were on the last webinar and I told everyone this is where you can enter your PERA retirement information, this is where you do it, where it says, let's talk about your retirement savings. You click this button here, you go to your retirement savings, your other retirement savings and income. Okay, and then you go to this next menu. Okay, so yeah, I just want to say real quick, make time to play around in your deferred comp account. And I always refer to it as the rabbit hole. Okay, you're gonna go down a rabbit hole, and it is a good rabbit hole, but there is a lot of information on here. And so you need to just make sure that you're not distracted and doing other things so that you can really pay attention. But here's where you can edit or enter your PERA information. Let's see. Okay, so here, like I said, we're going to another rabbit hole over here. And it is asking me what I want to do. I have my retirement income evaluation. I'm just going to click next. I am going to choose that I will do the work because I want to enter my own information. And I'm going to click get started. And we're going to say, let's go. And here is more tools for you where you can start entering your information. As you guys can see, I've already played around with it. I have myself in here as retiring at age 65. I can add my spouse in here. I can go to the income planner. I can, yeah, there's a lot to do. You can enter information about Social Security. You can edit your information here. I mean, there's a lot that you can do in these accounts. Peter, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, these tools are very powerful, but when you're playing around with it, you know, if you get a number that looks way off or something, just know that these are kind of like guidelines.
Yes.
You know, it's not gonna predict the future for you or anything like that. It's simply a tool that's gonna kind of help guide you along the way. So, because
Yes.
people go in here and they might see like the red stop sign and you just feel like a failure. But you know, really, really, what it's trying to say is like, there's time. You know, you still have time to change things around. You know, and they're really just guideposts to help you.
Trying to find where you enter, estimate my pension income. Oh yeah, this is where you'll enter your PERA info. So if you go back to, okay, sorry. You go back to that, your retirement savings, you go to your retirement savings and income, estimate my pension income. See, I've already done it, but here's where you're gonna select the state of New Mexico. Enter your system. So if you're on the last webinar and I mentioned that it has all of the different plans, okay, ERB, state plan. So I am state plan tier 1, 3. It asks me for my years of service. It asks about cost of living. I'm just going to leave that blank. Nope, it's going to let me. Okay, I'm just going to put 1%. It's going to ask me to estimate my annual income. And so that is not my annual income, by the way. My recommendation for those of you on this call is to go into your Rio account and get your estimate, your PERA estimate from Rio and enter that number here. So I'm just going to lower that. And you know what? I'm going to change this to 57 because I think that's when I am eligible. I'm going to save my info. And the dollar bill is going to, what this dollar bill does is it takes into account how your deferred comp is doing and what your PERA pension is going to do. So it's telling me I'm on track because I told the system that I want about $300,000 a month. Okay, now if I was off track, the dollar bill will fill up less. So these slide tools here, see right now it's showing how much I'm contributing per pay period. I can increase that or decrease that, and it's going to tell me how that changes. So let's say if I increased it by $11, and I want to retire at age 57. Show me the impact. See, the dollar bill is going to fill, but apparently I'm doing well, so my dollar bill is full. But this is just an example of how you can use these tools. And I'm going to go to another screen now. Okay, this is that second link that we had at the top where it says financial wellness. These are all of the different guidance tools that you have in that financial wellness link here. So if you want to go into that first financial wellness stage or financial wellness tool, it's going to ask you to take your financial wellness assessment. So you're going to get started. You're going to enter your information. Well, we'll pretend I was born in '87. I am married. I have, let's put in, oh, is it not letting me? Okay, I have no children. Currently working full-time. How do you feel about your current financial situation? Confident, not confident, okay? What types of insurance do you have? So you could see it's going to ask you all these different questions about yourself. It's going to ask you, do you care for a family member? What's your spending like? Do you have money set aside for expenses? Oh, and look at that one. It asks you how many months does your savings cover you for? Do you have credit card debt? Do you struggle to keep your debts in order, your payments going? Besides retirement, what other goals do you have? Maybe I want to get a new car, see my results. So based on what you enter, it's going to give you these different scores. Okay, on protection, spending and saving, emergency fund, retirement, debt, and other goals. Say it's going to ask, you can look at your score details. You're going to score green, yellow, or red, right? Just like our chili here. Well, I don't know about yellow, but spending and saving. This person didn't have in his emergency fund, he's in the red. So this is going to give you an assessment of where you are, and then it's going to help you improve that. It's already 1 o'clock. I know we're almost to the end here. But these next screens are going to show you, it's going to give you all of the resources of how you can improve your situation on each one of those different topics. So how to build an emergency fund, 6 smart things you can do with $1,000. So this is just an example of that, of the website and the tools that are available for you.
Ms.
Okay.
Karen, 2 things related to this portion of the presentation. One is somebody asked if you could show how to modify the pension amount in the calculator, because they indicated they had some difficulty with that. And then the second question is, does the module take into consideration like a children's college savings fund?
Yes and yes. Okay, where am I? I'm going to stop sharing here. Okay, there is a place where you can estimate your pension information, and I'd have to go find it. And so in the interest of time, if I can put up our email address at the end, if that person can send me an email. But in that first section, where am I? When you go to your myOrangeMoney and you go to that drop-down menu, there's a place to edit. Now, I did talk to an individual last month who said she didn't have that edit button. And so I did have an edit button. And anyway, there is a place in the myOrangeMoney to edit that information. I just want to finish real quick on the presentation, and then we can go back to questions. Okay, this is just a recap of what we learned today. I know it's one tip to financial freedom, but here's your 4 tips. 1, get started, right? Simple way to get into the plan, get started. Second tip is the stock market. Understand basic investment concepts. You can understand your statement when you get it. You can understand what's going on with your own deferred comp account. Third tip is pay attention. When you get your statements, pay attention to that information and make the necessary changes. Don't just set it and forget it and think about it 25 years later. Just keep adding to that deferred comp, even if it's $5. You know, if you're contributing $50 today, add 55 or $5 and make it $55. You'll be surprised how very little of an increase can make a difference. And then the last tip is plan resources. Take advantage of those resources that are available to you. And like I said, once you log into that Voya account and you start playing around in there, there is a lot of robust information in there, but it all serves a purpose. And then just this last slide, we thought we would add, you know, when I got my first state job, I went and told my mom is a retiree from the state, and I was so happy. And I told her, guess what? I got a job with the state. I have health insurance, I have retirement, I have this, that, and the other. And she said, that is great. So are you putting money away for savings? And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, retirement is great, and having that PERA retirement is very great, but you also need to have an emergency savings. And I said, well, how much do I have to have? And she said, minimum $10,000. And to me, I was like, oh my God, $10,000, where am I going to get that? I started with $25. I decided to open a bank account at a separate bank that is completely separate from my main bank. I started putting $25 into that bank, automatic. This was when the state used to allow us to put money into different places. And so I was sending $25 automatically to that bank. I don't have an ATM card to that bank. I don't have checks to that bank. If I have to pull money out of that bank, I have to physically drive myself over there and walk into the bank and get money out. I purposely did that so that it is hard for me to access that money. And so all these years later, I am still putting money. Of course, I have increased that amount. I'm putting more than $25, but I have that money. And just to put that into perspective, I had to buy a roof recently. And if all of you understand how much a roof costs, that is money, right? But I had it. I paid cash and I was done. Supposed to have this roof for another X amount of years. And so that was a great lesson for me. And so that's what this last slide is. 10 healthy habits to financial freedom. Make your savings automatic. Control impulse spending. Evaluate your expenses and live frugally. I know that is a hard one. Invest in your future. We talked earlier about pay yourself first, right? Keep your family secure with an emergency savings. For those of you with little ones, you know, you've got 3 or 4 different people that you're responsible for. Have that money available for you. Eliminate and avoid debt. Make an effort to track your spending, okay? Pay your bills immediately, set up auto pay, educate yourself on financial wellness. Again, you know, that is the whole purpose of today. Know all of the resources that are right at your fingertips and utilize those. And look to grow your net worth, right? When we leave this earth, I hope that we leave it with something to share, right? To take care of our family members or whoever it is that we care for. The only way to get to do that, like Peter said, is to make that effort early on in the game. So it's 1:05. Thank you all. There's that email address right there, para-smartsave@state.nm.us. If you have specific questions about your specific account, please send the email there and I will flag those. But Christina, if you want to go through general questions right now.
This has been the most amazing group ever. I've never seen this many questions pop through during what we're calling a webinar today, since this is the new updated platform. I think we did the best that we could with the majority of them. But give me just a second, I sort of lost track. So 2 seconds. Somebody asked a great question about how close to retirement should you start moving your investments towards something more stable. And I think perhaps you touched on that just a little bit. And I know we don't give everybody the blanket, this investment is right for you conversation, because everyone is an individual. But someone did have a question that I thought was really important to note. They wanted to know at what rate you are taxed when you are eligible to take those funds from your PERA SmartSave account.
Okay.
I can answer that one if you want.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's tied in with your marginal rate. And one of the nice things about these accounts is that typically what happens is you go into retirement or you leave your job and your income drops, right? So when you start pulling out of this deferred account, whatever you pull out of there is going to show up as additional income. If you're already at a low bracket and you're pulling money out of it, you're going to probably remain in that low bracket and you're going to be taxed very low, right? So the question would really come down to, like, do you know what your marginal rate is, right? If you retire and say you pick up another job right away, right, and you decide to start pulling out, just remember, whatever you're making at that point, the money that you pull out is going to get tacked on to that in total. Okay, so if you make even $30,000 part-time, right, in retirement, and then you decide to pull out another $30,000, the IRS says you made $60,000 that year, and you're going to get taxed at whatever marginal rate would be for someone who made $60,000.
And just administratively, how that works, whenever you take out a distribution, the federal government, the IRS, has a mandatory withholding. And right now that mandatory withholding is 20%. Okay, that doesn't mean that you owe 20%. It's just what is required to be withheld up front. So if you take out $500, your net is going to be minus 20% for federal taxes. You can choose to withhold New Mexico tax or state tax wherever you live. Then you're going to get what's called a 1099-R. You're going to get that in January. That 1099, you're going to use that to file your taxes. You're going to report 20% was already withheld. And just like Peter said, in the end, it all gets tied into your own personal tax bracket. If 20% withholding ended up being too much, well, then you're going to get that back in a refund. If it wasn't enough because of your entire financial picture, well, then you're going to owe. But 20% is pretty high. And I think the idea there is that it's going to cover your tax liability. And you can, yeah. So that is the answer to that. And real quick, an answer to the previous question is, how soon should we start moving our money around prior to retirement? If you are in the default target date funds, one of those life cycle portfolios, you don't have to worry about that. The job of those life cycle portfolios is it is already moving the money around for you. Okay, so if you are in a 2025 portfolio and you're eligible to retire in 2025, the work is already being done for you on the back end. Now, if you are an individual who has made your own investment options and you've got your different funds, you're not using the target date funds, then maybe you want to start paying attention to that as you get closer to retirement. Maybe, I don't know, this all has to do with your comfort level. Okay, if you are more of a risk taker and you want to wait 5 years to retirement, but if you're more conservative, you want to go 15 years before you retire. Again, Peter, Paul, and Linda, these are, you sound like a band, Peter, Paul, and Linda. These are your licensed outreach reps who are licensed to provide you with investment education. Those are the individuals you will call to talk about your investment options to see what is best for you.
And one other thing I'll just quickly add to that. When you retire or you leave your job, you don't have to take out of this account, right? If you decide you want to leave it there and let it keep growing, you can do that. Um, Only one point, and I'm not going into too much detail. Typically, when you turn 72, the IRS asks that you take out a small amount. It's around 3 to 4%, but it's only at that point. So you can be retired for 20 years and not even touch this account and just let it sit and keep growing. So it's really up to you.
Yes. And those required minimum distributions at age 72, if you forget about this, we're in our 70s, I don't remember things anymore. Don't worry. Our administrator is going to send you your check anyway. They're going to have it all calculated out. The calculation is based on your life expectancy and your balance. And you're going to get that check automatic. So you don't have to worry about that either. Any other questions?
Tons. So hopefully you have a few more minutes. One of the questions was super, I think it will be inspiring if you happen to know off of the top of your head. Someone wants to know what the highest account value, like the dollar amount, and the average account value, just to kind of inspire those of us who maybe started saving a little bit later. I know when we've traveled the state, we tell a story about an individual down in southern New Mexico who saved 6 figures, legitimately started with like $10 a paycheck and upped it a couple of dollars every time he saw his rep and walked out the door with 6 figures. So I know the number's probably up there.
Yes. Can everyone see my screen right now? I'm loading our quarterly activity. We actually have a slide on this.
Still on your pitch deck PDF.
Oh, that you're on the, okay. Okay, do we see it now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, number of participants by balance. You can see those that are, we have 146 people that are above 500,000. And I do know that there are a handful of participants that have above $1 million. It's a small handful. I think it's less than 10, but we do have millionaires in New Mexico that have retired from the government. And so I hope that is inspiring. As you can see, the majority of participants have between $1,000 and $5,000. Now, this doesn't tell a complete story. This could be new enrollments, people just starting out. But we did used to have a median account balance, and that median account balance is about $26,000. So if the median is half the plans are above that, and I mean half the balances are above 26,000, and the other half are below 26,000. So it kind of gives you an idea of what to do. And $1 million, that sounds pretty good.
And
That
Carrie,
is amazing.
sorry, Miss Christina, I know that there was a question earlier through the seminar, and someone had asked about beneficiary information, like if they pass and their beneficiary passes, are their adult children eligible? So can you kind of explain that process, Karen?
Yep, the beneficiary process is similar to PERA's. The only difference is you are not required to name your spouse as your beneficiary. So if you look at the beneficiary forms, there's a place for primary beneficiaries and a place for contingent beneficiaries. So your primary beneficiary is going to be, whoever you're going to leave this money to first. If for some reason your primaries are invalid, then it's going to go to your contingents. So the only thing I will say about beneficiaries and spouses, New Mexico is always a community property state. And so if you get a divorce and your divorce decree or whatever settlement requires that your spouse is entitled to your deferred comp, that is, of course, the only time where legal precedence does take over as far as paying the spouse. But outside of that, you can name anyone as your beneficiary. If you name a minor child, someone who's under the age of 18, typically it goes into some kind of like a trust account until they reach the age of 18. Now, this gets a little more complicated, and maybe if you're leaving this money to someone who's a minor, you might want to have your own personal estate in order, like a will or a trust, something that gives direction onto who is going to give this money to my minor child. But again, that's something that we can talk more one-on-one with individual situations. Did you have something to add, Peter?
No.
Okay.
And that kind of segues, Karen, into a question that just came in. Someone had asked if they needed to talk to someone or make changes, do they have to pay a fee for professional management?
That is a great question. Okay. The plan has two options for investment advice. Okay. One is free and one is not free. Okay. So the first option for investment advice is you go in, you use a tool called Financial Engines, and you go in, you enter a profile, your risk profile, your time horizon, your comfort level, and then it's going to give you a recommendation on how you should invest. Okay. And then of course the choice is up to you. You make the changes. Okay. But throughout the website and throughout your online account, you're going to see a link that says professional management. That is an option if you want a licensed investment advisor to move your funds around for you, but it is at an additional cost. Okay. The first 3 months are free if you do opt in for this feature. But after that, the fee, I believe, is about $5 for every $10,000 you have per month. So $5 a month for every $10,000 you have. I'm more frugal naturally. I believe in our target date funds. So I am probably one who wouldn't go with professional management, but maybe some of those individuals that have the $1 million, maybe they want someone who's doing that. And just something to note, the purpose of the professional managed accounts is not to time the market. You know, like Peter said, timing the market is not effective, but time in the market is effective. The purpose of professional management is not to move your funds around when the market is down. Your funds are going to be moved around always based on your time horizon and your risk tolerance. Okay, so the purpose of this retirement account is to provide you with money at the end of your career, whenever that target date hits. And that is how they're going to move money around. They're not going to see those triangles pointing down and start moving things around for you. Okay, they're only going to start moving things around based on that time horizon, how much time you have to spend in the market.
And also, I'm available. Paul's available, as mentioned. Linda is available. We can not give you specific advice, but if you're looking for just a general question or sort of educational, or you want to talk over an idea, we're always here and available for that. So, yeah, we all act as fiduciaries. Just so you know, we're here to look out for you first. We're not getting commissions for this or anything like that. So. Also, feel free to reach out to us. Just know I can't give you the sort of advice where I'm like, oh, you need to buy that or you shouldn't do that, right? Okay.
Anything else? I want to thank everyone for hanging on for longer than the hour. It's a popular presentation. If we don't have anything else, I think we have all of the contact information in the plan's website on the slides. Of course, you can go to the PERA website. There's a deferred comp tab at the top. Depending on where you live in the state, you've got your outreach rep that's available to you. Again, get started, pay attention, and start getting rich, everyone.
Okay. It was a good crowd.
Yeah.
Is that it? Is that it?
We had a nice comment saying that you inspired someone. So thank you so much, guys.
Hey, if you have to buy a roof next week with all this rain, I can relate.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Have a nice day. Have a nice